PANL-401 is a 5-in-1 omnidirectional wideband panel 5G antenna. And what we mean by the 5-in-1 antenna, it has 5 antenna elements. So we have horizontal, vertical, another horizontal and vertical cellular antennas, and then we have a GPS antenna that is located at the middle of the antenna. So in total, we have 5 antennas in the same enclosure, and that's why we are saying it's a 5-in-1 omnidirectional wideband panel 5G. So let's dive into the name. So we need to understand when someone sees PANL-401, they need to directly relate and understand the antenna elements in that antenna. And we called it a panel just because of the way the radome looks like. So it's rectangular. The radome is rectangular and flat, but it's not because we have panel antennas inside the radome. It's just because of the shape of the enclosure, which is flat and rectangular. So here the panel just refers to the antenna series name. So when we develop more derivatives, we'll have a panel, something else, a certain number. And then the number that is starting is the number of the cellular antennas. In this case, we have 4 cellular antennas, 2 horizontal and 2 vertical. 0 means we have 0 Wi-Fi antenna, so there's no Wi-Fi antenna inside the enclosure, and we have 1 GPS antenna in the enclosure. So we thought this would be a good naming convention of our antennas going forward, because a user can easily see if whether or not the antenna has the technology he's looking for. So without going to our data sheets or contacting our client, our support, just to find out what technologies are in that antenna. Just looking at the name will tell the client what antennas are inside the radome. So as you can see on the image on your right, so that's how PANL-401 looks like. It's sleek, it's compact, and it has a matte finish, and it's only available in black. I'd like to show you, I actually have a sample here. So this is the PANL-401. As you can see, it's very compact. It's sleek looking, if you ask me. And then it's black in color for now, and it has a matte finish. At the back, so at the front here, it's bulging a bit at the center, just for this design that we chose, and for it to accommodate the pointing orbit. On the back, there, we have 4 mounting holes there for our mounting options that I'll cover later. And then we have our pointing name there that is engraved on the radome. I'm sure you can't see so clearly. And then we also have text here that says at the bottom that says this side faces outwards. What this means is remember we have a GPS antenna inside the radome. So the GPS antenna is facing outwards. So this antenna can only be mounted in this direction to make sure that the GPS is always facing outwards. It needs to pick up GPS signal. So there is no way a client can mount it this way or the other way. So this side has to always be facing outwards if you need to get GPS reception. So that's just how it looks. It's sleek, it's simple, and if you ask me, it's a very good looking antenna and a good addition to our portfolio. It comes with RTK cables, 2-meter cables, and of course, SMA connectors at the other end. All right, so let's look into some specifications of the PANL-401. We will look at the mechanical specs as well as the electrical specifications of the antenna. So the PANL-401 covers a wide frequency range, all from as low as 410 and as high as 6 gig. This makes sure that it's compatible with the legacy and the current and also emerging technologies that's making our antenna to remain future-proof. The lower frequencies are very important because they are excellent in signal penetration through obstacles like buildings and dense foliage, and are also ideal for long-range communication, while the mid and the high frequencies will provide high bandwidth for faster data rates in demanding environments. So having a balance of offering both the low and the mid to high frequencies make this a versatile antenna that can be used in different applications and in different environments. The PANL-401 has a peak gain of 7.8 dBi, which is quite high given its form factor. And this can be translated into the estimated coverage distance. Typically, the higher the gain of the antenna, the longer the coverage distance. And this will provide superior signal strength and extended coverage. The antenna has 4x4 MIMO cellular antennas that are cross-polarized. The 4x4 MIMO is very beneficial because it will provide higher data throughputs and more reliable connections, especially for bandwidth-intensive applications like video live streaming or real-time navigation or mission-critical communications. And the cross-polarization that we were able to achieve with this design, we have the horizontal antennas there, and then we have the vertical antennas, and also another horizontal here and a vertical there. These antennas are cross-polarized, and the advantage of having cross-polarized antennas, we cannot stress this enough, is just because the antennas will be able to receive signals in multiple polarizations at the same time. This is important because you'll be able to capture a strong and a stable signal even when the transmitted signal changes its polarization. And this is very important, especially in mobility applications where the vehicle keeps on changing direction or its position in relation to the cell towers. It has a dual band GPS antenna. Why we use the dual band GPS antenna? Because this antenna will be on the side. It's not facing upwards. So it will be on the side, and it will be receiving two GPS signals on the L1 and the L5 band. The L1 is the 1575 megahertz frequency, and the L5 is the 1176 megahertz frequency. So it's receiving GPS signals not only on one, but on two frequencies. And this will result into greater precision and faster location fixes as compared to if it was only receiving the GPS signal on one frequency. On the mechanical specifications, it's not quite is not big. It has a length of 267, a width of 210 millimeters, and a thickness of 31 millimeters. It's quite compact, and it actually fits in, and when you mount it, you can barely see it, if I can put it like that. Like it just blends in its environment. It's IP65 rated for water ingress, and for impact resistance, it's IK8, and it's only available for window mount. Let me just mention that this is an indoor antenna for now, and it's only applicable on a window mount. It cannot be mounted anywhere else apart from a window. So why did we develop the PANL-401? So this was not an antenna that was in our product offering. It's something that we started thinking about from last year. So why did we develop the PANL-401? There's still a high demand for mobility and fixed wireless antennas, which is evident from the significant sales volumes we've been having of our current mobility and fixed wireless antennas. So our parks and our exports are doing very well in the market. So that shows that there's still a demand for these antennas in the market. So we wanted to add onto our product offering for these both verticals. And we needed also to keep up with the competition. Our competitors out there, they already have such antennas. So we identified a gap in our product offering and put in resources, and we developed a product that differentiates us from our competitors performance-wise, as you will see later on. There was a market demand for easy and non-invasive installation methods. What we mean by this is some people don't want to drill holes on their structures. You do not want to go outdoors. So this is a flexible way. You just stick it on your window, and then that's it. So there was a demand for easy and non-invasive installation methods, especially and for cars that are leased or rented. You do not want to interfere or just make holes anyway. So just this antenna, you just mount it on the window and off you go, and you have your access to the internet, or even in your house for fixed structures. If you don't want to drill a hole, you just stick the antenna on your window. Then there was also a need for an antenna that provides enhanced portability and versatility. So what this means is we do not have such an antenna in our portfolio. So this is an antenna that you can, if you're in an office setup, you use it in the office. If you're going home, you take it off from the window, you pack it in your laptop bag, you take it home, mount it again on the window at home, take it off when you want to travel, maybe on a road trip. You can literally take it with you anywhere. It's compact, it's small. It can fit in most bags, especially the size of a laptop bag or even smaller. So it's the portability that we also wanted to introduce to the market. So the sales verticals or the applications, the PANL-401 can be used in the transport and mobility sector. So in the transport and mobility sector, it can be used in the passenger vehicles. This is the buses, your coaches, even in the RVs, and it can be used in the emergency response vehicles. This is where we have the fire trucks, the ambulances, the police cars. And on the fixed wireless access side, it can also be used in your home and an office. Just remember, it's an indoor antenna that is meant to be mounted on a window, and the window needs to be clean. How do you clean it? You just use an alcohol-based solvent just to remove any dust or dirt or oil or watermarks that can be on the window, which will help to make contact for the antenna to make good contact with the window. So these are the major or the primary applications of the antenna, which is transport and mobility and fixed wireless access. The frequency range for the PANL-401 is wideband, as low as 410 all the way to 6 gigahertz. So it's future-proof. So we are covering the legacy, the current, and the emerging technologies that are coming up. And it also covers the Wi-Fi frequency. The frequency is here from 2.4 to 2.5 gigahertz, and from 5 to 6 gigahertz. So this is very important because especially for users that have routers with 2 cellular, 2 Wi-Fi, and 1 GPS, this antenna can still be used even if it doesn't have Wi-Fi antennas. It still can receive Wi-Fi because it covers these Wi-Fi bands. So for a user that has a router with 2 cellular, 2 Wi-Fi, and 1 GPS, the 2 extra cellular antennas on the PANL-401 can be used for Wi-Fi, and they'll be able to receive Wi-Fi for their applications. So I just wanted to touch on the benefits of a good and stable connection. I just feel these are things we should stress over and over again, just to help people understand, why do we need connectivity on a bus? Why do we need connectivity at home? So these are good ways of understanding why you will need a good and stable connection, which we will provide with our antenna. So on a bus, an RV, or a car, this will provide enhanced passenger entertainment. So guys who are streaming videos, music, movies, social media, people will be entertained as they're on transit. It will enable remote work. So if you're someone who wants to work while on transit, you'll be able to do that because you'll have good and stable connectivity. It will help you stay connected with your family and friends via video calls, messaging apps, or social media. The onboard safety and security systems can be integrated with this connectivity that you have in your vehicle, and then you will ensure passenger safety. The passenger services and information, for example, like accessing real-time information for bus schedules, routes, and arrival times, will be possible because you'll have access to internet. This is also a value add for the guys that are operating the buses. So if you have Wi-Fi that is being offered in your bus or in your coach, passenger coach, this will be a value add service. And most people, for example, will prefer to be there because they can work or watch their movies while on transit. So it's a value add, and you can end up, you'll actually have a competitive advantage compared with your competitors. And you can be able to attend to emergencies. So you can report accidents or find roadside assistance if needed. What about when you're home or in the office? Why do you need a good and stable connection? It helps you to be efficient when you're working remotely, and you can be able to collaborate with your colleagues at work. There's uninterrupted communications because it's a stable connection. So you'll be able to do your emails, your video calls, whether it's on Teams or messaging apps. You can do entertainment, you can do media streaming, online gaming, social media use, and live streaming. You can do customer support. So the guys that do customer support, there'll be seamless connectivity. It will be stable connection. The smart home and IoT devices, you'll be able to connect your smart devices to this connection that you've made available at your home. And you have access to online education. So the guys that are also studying at home, they'll be able to access e-learning platforms, online courses, and virtual classrooms, among many other advantages of having connectivity at home or in your office. And for the emergency response vehicle, so this is where the police cars come in, the fire trucks, and the ambulances. There's real-time communications. Remember, these are emergency response, so you have to respond immediately. Otherwise, it's a saving life situation. So it's a real-time communication between emergency personnel and the dispatch centers and hospital. You'll be able to access real-time information. So this is things like the latest incident reports, weather updates, the road conditions, the medical databases, the treatment protocols, and patient history, telemedicine, and remote support. So people can consult with doctors or specialists while treating the patients in the field. So if the doctor cannot make it there to the scene, you can be able to do it remotely. He can be able to be consulted remotely. There's GPS and navigation systems. Responders will quickly locate any site that has an emergency and avoid traffic or roadblocks. Data sharing, you can send live data, images, and videos to command centers for resource allocation and tactical decisions, and also onboard monitoring and safety systems. So vehicle cameras or body cams can be integrated in the system to provide live incident feeds, which will enhance the safety of both responders and the flight. So there are so many good advantages of having a good and stable connectivity in these instances, and it will save a life. So we measured our antenna in an anechoic chamber downstairs, and these are the measured results. We'll discuss the VSWR, the gain, as well as the isolation. So just a reminder, the VSWR means it's a voltage standing wave ratio, which is a measure of how efficiently an antenna can transmit power from a source. The source here can be a router or a radio without reflecting the power back. So a high VSWR will mean that the antenna is inefficient and most of the power is being reflected back. But a low VSWR will mean that the antenna is efficient and it's using, or it's efficient and most of the power is being used. So for the PANL-401, as you can see, let me just use my pointer there. It has from 410 all the way to 6,000 megahertz. It has a VSWR of less than 2 over 85% of the band. So on the lower frequencies, we have just a little bit more of the VSWR, but it's still usable on those frequencies. So for the gain here is the gain illustrated in this graph is representing an individual element. So it's not the MIMO gain, it's just an individual element in the antenna. And the PANL-401 has a peak gain of 7.8 dBi, which is seen on this band, 3.3 all the way to 4.2. On the lower bands, we have a peak gain of 4 dBi there. And it's good enough given the form factor of this antenna, and it will extend the coverage over longer distances, the 7.8 dBi, because it's high enough given this form factor of the antenna. Over to the isolation. Isolation basically means it's the degree in which these antenna elements in the radome, remember there are 4 antenna elements inside the same radome. So it's the degree in which these elements are electrically and physically decoupled from each other. What that means is they are not interfering with each other, and there's no energy leakage from one element to the other. As you can, and a good isolation here is typically less than 10, which we can see it's being achieved by this antenna. So it's less than 10 from 410 all the way to 960 megahertz, and it's less than 20 from 1710 all the way to 6 gigahertz. So all the antenna elements for the panel 401 are greatly decoupled from each other. So on to our radiation patterns. We'll start with the side view, and the side view is the elevation antenna pattern, which will show you how that antenna radiates or receives signals in the vertical plane. That is from the ground level up to the sky. It's like looking at the antenna from the side instead of from the top. So the antennas you can see here represent a single element again, which is the vertical element that we looked at. And as you can see on the lower frequency, we realize there's lower gain, and hence there's a wider elevation beam width. And the higher frequencies, the elevation beam widths become narrower, and most of the energy is focused at the horizon, which is the zero degrees point there. So these are good elevation patterns. And in the panel 401, since we have the vertical and the horizontal antennas, the horizontal polarization is realized just by rotating these vertical elements to 90 degrees. And since both the vertical and the horizontal are properly isolated, or they have great isolation between them, then the individual antenna elements will be able to operate without interference, which will hence increase the data rates. And then we end up having a beautiful MIMO operation all the way from 410 to 6 gigahertz. So on to the azimuth. The azimuth is the top view patterns that show you how the antenna radiates or receives signals across a horizontal plane. This is like a bird's view of the antenna. So the pattern illustrated here also are for a single element. This time we considered also the vertical element, and the horizontal will be realized once you rotate this one to 90 degrees. As you can see, there is consistent signal reception in all directions from 410 to 6,000 with no obvious deformities, as you can see, which is important in mobility applications, especially because the vehicle is changing position while it's on the move. And this will ensure reliable connectivity even when it's moving. So there is no one time where connectivity will be lost. So that's the importance of having a good omnidirectional pattern, especially in mobility of applications. So onto the mechanical part of this antenna. As mentioned earlier, it's a compact antenna with a length of 267 millimeters, which is equivalent to the 10.51 inches. It has a width of 210 millimeters, equivalent to 8.27 inches, and a thickness of 31 millimeters, which is equivalent to 1.22 inches. The enclosure is made of UV stable SAA material. Why did we use the UV stable SAA material? It will provide resistance to artificial UV exposure. So it's artificial because the sunlight will be passing through the windows. So it's not outdoors, it's indoors. So the sunlight is through the window. So that's why we are saying it's resistant to artificial UV exposure. For example, if it's in a room or in a vehicle that has LED lighting with UV emissions and fluorescent lighting. So it will provide resistance to this exposure, and also for aesthetics retention. So UV stable SAA prevents yellowing over time or fading over time or surface cracking, which ensures that the enclosure looks clean and new for a long time. The antenna, as mentioned earlier, comes with 2-meter RTK31 cables, and these cables are known for their low signal loss, high performance, and durability over time. On the environmentals, the panel 401 is IP65 rated against dust intrusion, which may degrade the performance of the antenna if it gets in there or if it accumulates in the radon. And also it it means that the IP65 also means that it can withstand low pressure water jets from any direction. So where would water come in if this antenna is mounted indoors? So windows may be exposed to condensation from temperature changes, water splashes during window cleaning, or moisture if the window isn't fully sealed. So our antenna is airtight, if I can say it, call it like that, and has it's sealed against all this. So there's no dust intrusion or water that can get in there. And it's also rated for impact resistance with a rating of IK08. This is protected from accidental knocks. This can be from people or objects, and also protected from falling objects that can probably like even maybe crack the antenna or something. But the fact that it's made of high quality materials and it had a high quality design and the manufacturing standards that were followed are high quality, this antenna can withstand impacts up to the IK08 standard or rating. So let's look at the mounting options for the PANL-401. The PANL-401 will have the mounting option, the following mounting options. It's window mount, as I mentioned earlier. You can use industrial grade Velcro strips that we provide with the antenna. This Velcro has a hook and a loop tip. So the hook is attached at the back of the antenna, while the loop is the one that's attached to the hook tip. So it's a non-invasive mounting method because you do not require any tools and you do not even require to go outdoors. All you just need to do is just make sure that you have a clean window for proper contact of the Velcro to the window. So I'll just show you a brief illustration of what I mean. So that's how it happens. We have a Velcro plate where you attach the hook tape on top of the plate, and then you screw this at the back of the antenna. As in the beginning of the presentation, I showed you there are 4 holes at the back of the antenna. So this is where you screw in the plate with the hook tape Velcro, and then you attach the loop part to it, and then you press it on a window. So the other option apart from Velcro that is available to mount on a window is the use of suction cups. So the suction cups you're using here, they are strong and easy to install because they have screws. And this is how it looks like. You have to fasten each suction cup on the individual holes, and then you just gently press this on a window. Just make sure your window is clean. As I continue to emphasize that you should clean your window so that you can have proper contact of the antenna to your surface. So let's look at the key selling points of the PANL-401. So, okay, it's a 4x4 MIMO 5G mobility antenna. Why do we need 4x4? For higher data rates, data throughputs, for up to 4 times the data speed of a single antenna, which will make it ideal for bandwidth intensive applications, for example, like live streaming. It's ultra wideband, so it covers frequencies from 410 all the way to 6,000 megahertz. The lower frequencies, of course, they come with the advantage of better signal penetration through obstacles, and they give you longer range, while the mid and the high frequencies provide higher bandwidth for faster data rates. It has cross-polarized antennas. Remember, we said we have 2 horizontal and 2 vertical antennas. And why do we need cross-polarized? Or the good advantage of having cross-polarized is it will still provide stable connectivity, whether the car is moving around or changing its direction. Relative to the cell tower, you will still receive a stable signal from the transmitter. It has a high peak gain of 7.8 dBi, which will help you to provide superior signal strength and extended coverage. So more key selling points. The cellular antenna's wideband design can support both cellular and Wi-Fi frequency bands. What we mean by this is for a user that has a router with 2 cellular ports, 2 Wi-Fi ports, and 1 GPS, they can still use this antenna because they'll use the extra 2 cellular antennas on the PANL-401 to connect to the Wi-Fi ports of the router and still get Wi-Fi reception. It has a dual band GPS antenna, which supports both L1 and L5 bands. So it's no longer receiving only from one band, GPS signal from one band, but it's receiving from two bands. Why do we need this? Because it will offer greater precision and faster location fixes, especially because it will be mounted on its side. It's not facing upwards. It's flexible and it has flexible and non-invasive mounting options by the use of the Velcro, the adhesive backed Velcro strips, and the suction cups. And it's sonic welded. The enclosure is sonic welded. What does it mean to be sonic welded? So the front radome, which is the enclosure, and the back enclosure, they are basically like melted together. So what does this do? It creates an airtight and waterproof seal and strengthens the overall structure, making it more resistant to impact and vibrations. It's a low profile and compact design with IP65 and IK8 rating for impact.